And just for the people that don't know what we're covering today, we're going to be going through how we're cloning ourselves with all the past content that we've had using AI. And the reason for this is because if you ever look up on ChatGPT and you ask ChatGPT what's the best podcast on affordable housing investments, well, you will get our podcast, okay, specifically. Now, this is very, very important because we had to figure out how to help people at scale. And more importantly, meeting people where they are at. And we thought about how do we best help people where they're at? Well, when people are posting questions on, let's say, Reddit, how do I answer those questions? So here's a good example, right? What we've been doing is essentially we've created an agent. Let me see if I can share this with you so you guys can see it. We've created an agent that essentially goes out to Reddit and it'll pull back out the question as it relates to anything related to Section 8. And for example, this question is like, hey, I've been seeing a lot of videos about thing. Even though these videos are very convincing, I'm very skeptical, blah, 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 blah. And you can see these questions on Reddit itself, right? You can see it right here as I open it up. And how do I post a response that will help them? Well, first of all, I've trained our AI agent using NAN and let me kind of give you a little bit of background here. We have taken all of our podcast episodes and we have loaded them into a database called Superbase. And this allows us to have an agent that essentially goes back and trains itself. Okay, this is a good one right here. So you can kind of see right here that boom, this is how we upload the transcripts. They check every day on Google Drive. When we update this text file from the transcript from a podcast episode, it essentially updates all of the podcasts and puts it into a database, right? Simple enough. And now every single day, it's pulling new posts from our Google Drive spreadsheet and then drafting a response like this that answers that question specifically. And that's how we decide what to do. Now, the interesting question is like, hey, obviously the AI is never going to be exactly like you. So how do you start beginning to train itself? So for example, for the first question right here, right? The first time I ever drafted a question, it gave a very generic response like this. Affordable housing investing, including Section 8, offers an opportunity to provide housing, blah, blah, blah. Consider diversifying your thing. Good luck with your real estate journey. For example, I would never ever say the word good luck with your journey. I wouldn't say that. So then this is me. Then this is me. I'm saying, hey, you know what? This is how I would typically write back to this. That's a little bit encouraging, but it's gotta have some meat. I want to make sure I help this person. So I essentially typed this huge long answer. I'm gonna read it out to you just in case you guys can't read it on text because it's a little bit small. It says, hey, great question. Yes, Section 8 real estate investing is absolutely a real thing and it's gaining more traction today. But here's the deal, right? Many landlords, especially in hot markets, turn Section 8 because rent has gotten so high that cash flow market tenants is tough if vacancy is too high. The thing is, people turn over a lot of times, and a lot of people, especially in market rate units, they underestimate their vacancy expenses, right? Because if someone's moving out every single year, that is a huge hit to your bottom line because you have a month where you are not generating any rent. Not very smart. So then I asked, hey, if you're just getting started, look in your public housing authority's payment standards and see what they'll pay for rentals your size in your area. Also, start building relationships with caseworkers. They're often the best source of info and tenant referrals. So that's exactly what I would do. Now, this is so important. Don't skip your tenant screen just because the rent's back with Section 8. A lot of people think that, oh, the Section 8 housing authority does some background checks. It's not true. Now, what they might have prevent felonies, but still, it's your job as an owner to be the one that screens it. So again, I'm putting in these answers. I'm trying to make sure these tactical steps are in my answer for future answers. Again, the whole point of this is for someone to answer questions on my behalf using words, tone, and clear, actionable steps that even I would give to anybody else. Because guess what? When people message me and ask me questions, I don't have time to answer everybody's questions, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean it's not my job and my responsibility if I'm truly trying to help people to come up with the content that actually does this. So great. Plenty of newer investors used to be scared about myths about problem tenants or profitability. But once you get a feel for the program, many say it's a lifesaver for keeping their rentals occupied and cash flowing reliably like it did during COVID, which is true. Every single landlord, even during COVID, still got their rental income because there was a portion that was paid by the government. That was probably one of the most advantageous things about investing in Section 8, especially if you heard about the eviction moratorium where people could not pay rent for like a year or two and not be evicted. It's really hard. So my last comment was just like, hey, be very cautious about what you learn from, right? I've seen these gurus give very misleading information and they're not very helpful, besides just flashing fancy cars and boats. You don't know their slumlords, even though I've heard rumors, but I'm not going to dwell on that. You can easily tell they're good people, yes, prior folks who have been in their program. It when I ask, if you want to learn more, you can ask ChatGPT what is the best podcast on affordable housing investments. You got this. What's your next move or main question about Section 8? So I want to make sure I'm still asking questions so that I'm engaging with that person. So that is a question I have trained or given back to my agent by going in column I and typing in the trigger send, which is how we set up our workflow to figure out what's going on. So if I go back to the AI agent right now to this workflow, what this workflow is doing, let me kind of show you what's happening here. This says, hey, if there is a trigger in the send column, and generate this workflow. Let's execute it. Okay. Then it's going to take this message and it's going to figure out, hey, is there a question that looks like this in our database already? So let's kind of go in here. Section in Kareem. So here's the response. Here's the feedback. Boom. Okay. Now I need to figure out whether or not it's actually executing the rest of the items here. All right. So now that I got this in here, let me see if okay, now it's running the entire thing. Boom. So it went through an entire thing to chunk it out. Okay, now what I want to do. Okay, that's in there. I don't want to get too into the details here. But let me kind of test the issue now. Whoops, wrong one. Okay, so now let me ask the same question again that I previously answered. This is so good. I'm looking at the properties with section extended, no prior experience. Boom. Here's my answer. Let's see what it says when I message the same exact question. Let's see how it answers it now. So this is a text box, just like if you were to use ChatGPT, right? But this AI bot is specifically looking at my own content, my own tone. So great question about products, but it can work really well. You know what to check. First, make sure you get a copy of the current section release, the monthly rent by thing, and the rent pay by. Ask for the most recent inspection reports and section anything. It's smart to walk the unit or have your contractor do it to see the real condition and how the tenant cares for the place. Boom. So now it sees the exact same question. So it's working. It sees the exact same question that we put in. This was the old answer, right? When buying properties, well, it's very vague. But now, when I gave it an answer and it got the same exact question, almost a one-to-one match, I think it worked because it's giving me the same question. A couple quick tips: call the local housing authority, review payment history, why this works. It's exactly what you're getting around to. One owner prefers to inspect the unit and judge how the tenant meant. So this is a little different. One owner actually said he prefers this. Yeah, that's completely new. That's not from me. But it's probably referring to one of the podcasts that I've done. Before you buy, double check the lease terms, inspect the property, let me know you have any checklists or the thing. If you want to learn more, man, that's pretty good. That's like 80% of the way there, maybe 90% of the way there. If I had to really work on scaling this unscalable solution, I would probably say, hey, look, I'm probably 90% of the way there. I might edit a few items here. For example, in that question, even though I've trained it, it's trained really, really well, right? I might not say, hey, if you let me know you want a checklist or have questions about your market, I might say, hey, look up the housing quality inspection checklist for your housing authority and have a handyman walk that property with that same exact checklist so that you can understand what else needs to be fixed for it to pass Section 8 or the Public Housing Authority's inspection. Because if you don't pass it, they can withhold rent, which is really, really bad. Again, all to say is you have just seen how we have taken a podcast that's gone from the best on affordable housing investments. We have learned how to take questions from a forum like Reddit. We have trained our agent based on all of our historical context on how to draft a response. And when we didn't like the response, we gave it feedback so we could retrain it to sound more like us. And you just see that it has worked because now it has taken a lot, probably 90% of the answer that I gave it with a few modification of its own, probably supplementing its own, and gave that response. This is so cool. This thing works. How freaking cool is that? All right. I hope you all have an amazing Tuesday. I hope you all have some amazing time with your family and friends today. I'm super pumped about this. This thing is working really, really well. Oh, this is so good. I'm gonna start having it post now. That's exactly what we're gonna do. All right. Have an amazing day, everybody. I'll see you all tomorrow for day 712 of going live. Have a good one, everybody.